All right, what if I told you that you could turn sound into light? I know, it sounds like pure science fiction, right? But it's a real thing, a totally mind-bending phenomenon called sonoluminescence. And in this explainer, we're going to dig into how a simple sound wave can make a tiny bubble do something that seems, well, impossible.
So let's just jump right in with the big question, the one that kind of feels like it breaks all the rules of physics. Can sound actually become light? I mean, your first reaction is probably, no way, right? It feels like it goes against everything we think we know about energy.
And yet, the answer is a definite yes. But the craziest part is where it happens. We're not talking about some giant, complex machine. It all goes down inside a single, tiny bubble, just floating in a bit of water.
Okay, so this seemingly magical event has a name, sonoluminescence. And you've got to love the nickname scientists have for it. They call it creating a star in a jar. And trust me, once you see how this works, you'll get why that's such a perfect description.
So what is this, really? Well, the official definition is pretty straightforward. It's a quick burst of light that comes from a bubble in a liquid when you hit it with sound. I mean, the name says it all, right? Sono, that's for sound, and luminescence for light. Sounds simple enough. But the how behind it, well, that's one of the biggest puzzles in modern physics.
So, how on earth does this happen? The wild thing is, the process you can see with your own eyes is actually super simple, but it's what's really going on under the surface that has had scientists scratching their heads for years. It all boils down to this four-step cycle. And get this, it happens thousands of times a second. First, a sound wave grabs a tiny bubble, kind of trapping it in place. Then, the pulse of the sound makes the bubbles swell up. And here's where the magic happens. The bubble doesn't just shrink, it collapses violently. And in that tiny, tiny fraction of a second, bang, a flash of light.
Okay, and here's where it just gets absolutely insane. The temperature inside that tiny collapsing bubble, it's estimated to be over 5,000 degrees Celsius. To put that in perspective for you, that is hotter than the surface of the sun. All of that from just a sound wave. How is that even possible?
And that, right there, is the heart of the mystery. Because when you run the numbers using traditional physics, it's really, really hard to explain where all that energy is coming from. Where does the light originate? How can sound get focused with that much intensity? The math it doesn't quite work.
So to try and crack this puzzle, some scientists are thinking, okay, maybe we're looking at this all wrong. And that brings us to a really fascinating new idea called frequency wave theory, or FWT for short. Now, FWT suggests something pretty radical. It says, hey, what if that bubble isn't just a little pocket of air? What if it's actually a special focus point, like a little nut or a node in a universal energy field that's all around us all the time, a universal frequency field?
So you can see how different this is, right? The traditional view says the bubble is just a container for gas. Simple. But the FWT view says it's something way more profound. It's like a gateway or a portal, a place where the universe's background vibrational energy can be tapped into and changed. And if that's true, that changes everything.
Okay, so if the bubble is a gateway, then how does it work? How does this new theory actually explain that incredible flash of light we see? Well, the key idea here is a concept called frequency momentum. The best way to think about it is this. Imagine the sound wave isn't just shoving the bubble around. Instead, it's constantly pumping it full of vibrational energy, kind of like filling a tire with air. All that stored up energy, that's the fuel for the flash. So let's trace the energy flow from this new perspective. First, the sound wave drives the system, injecting energy into the bubble. The bubble starts vibrating along with it. It's resonating. Then, when it collapses, it shrinks down to this critical, tiny point. And that's the trigger for something the theory calls a hyperbolic inversion. It's a fancy term, but what it basically means is that the low, slow vibration of sound gets instantly flipped, or folded, into the super-fast, high-frequency vibration of light. And poof, that sudden discharge of energy is the flash.
So, to put it really simply, the sound frequency becomes light frequency. It's not creating it from nothing. It's a direct transformation. One type of vibration just turns into another.
Okay, and if you thought that was wild, this is where the theory goes to a whole other level. It suggests that what we're seeing in this tiny bubble isn't just some weird lab experiment. No, it's a tiny, microscopic echo of the biggest, most powerful event we know of,
the Big Bang. I mean, just let this quote sink in for a second. A tabletop scale replay of the Big Bang? That's incredible. It means we might be watching a miniature repeatable version of the universe's creation happening over and over again right there in a beaker.
And when you look at the parallels, they're pretty stunning. You know, the Big Bang started from a singularity. The bubble starts from a point of trapped frequency. The universe expanded outwards. The bubble violently collapses inwards, kind of like the same event in reverse. And the result in both cases, the creation of light and radiation. It's the same pattern, just on a completely different scale. Okay, so at the end of the day, it's a tiny flash of light in a bubble. Why does this matter so much? Well, because if this is right, the implications could literally change our entire understanding of reality itself. Because if this theory is correct, then sonoluminescence isn't just some weird anomaly. It's a massive revelation. It's actual physical proof that you can convert one frequency to another, that sound can literally become light. It suggests that energy isn't just a property of matter, energy is vibration. That bubble becomes a frequency gateway, and it might just be showing us a deep connection, a unifying principle that ties together sound, light, electromagnetism, the whole shebang.
And that leaves us with a pretty stunning final thought to chew on. Maybe the universe is a lot simpler and a lot more elegant than we've ever imagined. And maybe every one of those little flashes is just a tiny reminder of a fundamental truth, that light itself is just sound, moving fast enough for us to see it.